So we are going to move on now to a very important hot button topic that I'm sure everyone in this room has had questions about or talked about, and I'm talking about AI. It's a term we cannot escape in the entertainment space right now for sure, whether it's fearfulness, embracing it, how it's going to affect people's jobs. You know, we're all wondering, and it's coming. And so we need to learn how to work with it, or we need to learn what to expect from it. So there's so much that we don't know on AI and how it will integrate into our world. So I have some experts here who can shed some light, hopefully, on this situation to us and how they envision it impacting our business. We have two guests. One will be virtual, and who's not here yet, but one is physical. And please welcome to the stage Veronika Macurovou Křížová. She is a lawyer who focuses on AI and IP. And virtually, we also have Sten-Kristianem Saluveer. There he is. Hello, welcome, Sten. Thank you for being here. Sten is an expert on the intersection of technology, media, and policy. He organizes the Cannes Next program at the Marché du Film and directs the Tallinn Digital Summit. I'm going to leave both of you two to discuss or to give us a little presentation, and then I'll come back with some questions afterwards. Oh, we can't hear. Hello? Sten, sorry. Problems here. Sten? Sorry, Sten, we can't hear you. But I think we're having some tech problems. Can anyone help us with that?
Great, I think now that
There we go. Now we can hear you. Perfect. Please.
So good morning, everyone. Isn't that absolutely wonderful that we're supposed to talk about technology and it doesn't work at all? My name is Sten Saluveer. I am the head of Cannes Next at the Marché du Film, the Festival de Cannes, where the innovation sidebar, where we extensively focus on new technologies as well as their practical applications for the film industry. And I also work as the director of the Tallinn Digital Summit. This is the premier global forum for leaders in AI, technology, and digital, hosted by our Prime Minister, where we're trying to make sense how here at Europe we can all more benefit from this big transition that is going on. I'm so sorry I can't be with you today because sometimes also analog things break. Yesterday when I was at the airport, well, it turned out to be that the airplane broke down and there was no way to make it to Karlovy Vary, even if we talk about AI. But we'll try to make it today virtually. I'll have about 10 slides of showing a big picture of AI at this current session. Veronika will then take over, and then in the afternoon, I hope you can join us at about 2:30. We're going to go a more deeper dive into what's going on. So what's going on in the kind of a big picture of AI in summer 2025? So I think if we look really at one single thing at AI, then we start understanding that looking at the data, looking at the media, looking at technological developments, the hype cycle and the unprecedented speed that AI is coming into our lives and businesses is quite unstoppable. So in May, Bond Capital, which is a major Silicon Valley analytics firm, released their annual Bond Capital report. I highly recommend, if you are an executive in any type of an organization, go and read that report. Just Google Bond Capital AI Report 2025, and they have about 360 pages of different types of insights, primarily how AI is influencing creativity, technology, and business right now. And one thing that comes pretty clear from the presentation is that the scale, the speed, and the capitalization of the transformation in AI is something akin we've never witnessed before. And I'll just give you a little comparison here. So if you look at this chart, the chart basically shows how many years it took a certain type of a business to reach 100 million users or audiences across the globe. It took Netflix a little bit more than 10 years to get to 100 million viewers. For ChatGPT, it took 2 months. So I think that number where we're talking about 1000x of scale difference of the adaptation of these technologies, and obviously we have many more use cases and technologies than ChatGPT, it shows how fast and with what speed AI is coming to our work, private and creative lives. The other really interesting thing, what we're really seeing is that, of course, this game is not only about ChatGPT. It's about a range of technologies, and the amount of these technologies and the amount of these use cases also increasing quite drastically. Within the sort of last 5 years, when in roughly around 2020, we started talking about AI as a technology that we could use, we've seen about twofold increase also in different types of models of AI that are entering the game, whether it's about XAI, whether it's about Anthropic and Anthropic's Claude. NVIDIA, that you might heard about, is primarily providing chips, but also software tools. Meta, or aka Facebook, has its own Llama platform. In Europe, in France, we have Mistral, which is our own European powerhouse, and so forth. So also the range of options, the range of availabilities to solve different types of problems and workflows is increasing as well. And what we're kind of estimating, and it might come as a bit of a shocker, then right now I would say the state of AI is rather an advanced personal assistant. It helps us to plan things, it helps us to summarize things, it helps us to read scripts, it helps us to budget, it helps us to do quite menial tasks, what would be done by a junior assistant. But what we're kind of estimating, and what ChatGPT and OpenAI, ChatGPT's developer, has estimated, that in about maximum of 5 years, we are able to generate full quality multimodal, that means video, audio, text, feature films. So we are in a kind of a situation where roughly in about 5 years, perhaps in Carlo Vivari or elsewhere, you would see a fully automatically generated feature film. If not in one piece, then certainly by extended scenes, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, Google's Vivo, or etc. That is a matter of preference and technological development, but this is the direction where we are heading. So Benedict Evans, who's a great industry analyst and looks into media and entertainment as well, he has argued in his annual presentation that we're kind of in the verge of the same platform shift as was brought on by the web and smartphones. So the web era brought us streaming, primarily Netflix and all of the other, HBO and others. The smartphone era brought us consumption of content on iPhones or Android phones, and also all kinds of social media platforms. And of course, the consumptions of films, TV series on phones has been also on unprecedented scale. So right now we are at the doorstep of a similar type of a revolution. How it's exactly going to play out, we'll see in time. But again, the scope and the breadth of that transition is equal. So in this type of situation where we see that the tsunami is coming, or we're surfing on top of that 100-foot wave, I think we really need to reassess from the position of the film industry what types of questions we ask. And I think rather than asking what AI cannot do right now, basically that, it's not so photorealistic, or it's hallucinating, or it's not delivering performances as we get from, let's say, real performers or musicians, perhaps it actually makes sense to ask ourselves what it can do already now. Basically transforming ourselves from the point of resistance to a point of coexistence, or at least adaptation, in order to understand how we can benefit or how we can tame the AI tools already right now. So what we really see, and here's my sort of last 3 slides really quickly, is that really interesting business models and cases in film and cinema are already emerging in AI within that short time frame of 5 years. So we already see platforms like Runway, 11 Labs, and Leonardo that are primarily offering really great image and sound generation tools. We'll see that AI that kind of steps on the photorealism of film is coming into our media and entertainment consumption platforms, whether it's TikTok, Spotify, and YouTube. One of the big changes that you might be familiar with is that we will have live dubbing, mostly on YouTube and Spotify, where any type of content can be dubbed into any type of a language in the world on your own voice. basically what that means is that for distribution, the whole market is open. Of course, we see that there's a lot of really great things happening at open source. Hugging Face is a really great platform that primarily works with news media, but coming into film as well. And they are specifically offering free of charge tools for working environments where you need to deal, for example, with sensitive information, such as in documentary. And well, no surprise that all of these other tools that we use every day, whether they are, Premiere or Blackmagic's DaVinci or Apple and etc., AI tools are becoming features in all of them. So we are kind of, again, amidst of a shift of going either from silence to a talkies, or from the 35mm prints to DCPs. And what you also need to keep in mind is that, especially in the last 6 months, there has been unprecedented flow of capital into this industry. United States has taken a sort of free-for-all approach where they put unrestrained money and talent and infrastructure in there. Well, in EU, we're still debating whether to regulate or not to regulate. France has announced recently in February a 110 billion euro investment to boost their local AI industry. But the big question is, what about smaller countries, Korea, Estonia, the Baltics, Czech Republic, the CEE region? What will be our own strategies if all single grand powers are jumping into that race? So what is really, really clear from the big discussions this summer is that you, as a film institution, a producer, an ecosystem funder, are in the table of big conversations. If you have an AI strategy, if you have ambition to be part of the game, you will understand what the technology and the infrastructure will do. And obviously you have to capitalize and figure out what these creative use cases are provided by their own film industry. And otherwise, if you don't do that, well, you might just get stuck in the blue screen of Windows. So just to kind of wrap it up here, in summer 2025, what we're really seeing is that specifically for film industry, there is hundreds, if not thousands of tools which are being updated on weekly. We have already seen AI native filmmaking studios emerging all around the globe. Think about Promise and many others. We all were hyped about Sora, but then it's Runway, Vivo, and Midjourney. Curious Refuge, which is an AI training platform for film professionals. They've already trained 4,000 film professionals from 171 countries, which shows an extraordinary interest in this technology. About the Hero, which is also premiering here at Carlo Vivari. They were the opener for ITFA, but also Ancestra, with David Aronofsky as a producer, was at Tribeca. Well, AI in a film festival is a news of yesterday, and the hottest job in an industry is an AI studio manager, a job position that didn't exist even 12 months ago. And we have first SAG approved AI film also completed, Echo Hunter, which Veronika will talk perhaps a little bit later. So yes, there was more drama and more drama about Emilia Perez and the Brutalist, but we'll see that these use cases of AI technologies are coming into our industry very fast. So finally, if you have one slide you want to take home from my talk, is that there's 4 key trends that I've seen from my own work. First of all, what we really see is that this industry is maturing, and we are moving from these kind of independent AI artists to AI studio directors. We see really, really interesting idea of a reverse development. Rather than writing a script and then trying to match or create a video on top of it, what we really see is that some studios in Europe are already starting the other way. They will work with directors and DOPs of prompting the images and the sets, what they want to see, and then they will basically rewrite their scripts back and forth. And this type of change is very profoundly influencing how we finance, how we raise co-finance, how we distribute and sell. We'll see really interesting multimodal tools, for example, Google's Vivo, which helps us to generate the whole pitch concept in one go. And finally, which we'll talk more in the afternoon, is the fact is that AI is not replacing, it's actually augmenting. And I'd like to present about 10 cases from my own work in the National Film School in Denmark, where I had the AI program for established professionals, what these enhancing workflows are. I hope that gave you a little bit of an idea. If you want to catch more of these AI insights, grab a screenshot here. And Veronika, I'll give it to you.
Veronika, hi. I'll come join you for this. Now, I have some questions, but did you have something you wanted to add first for us, or are you happy to go straight into questions?
I think perhaps we'll get to most of my favorite topics throughout our conversation, but just an overall comment. From my perspective as a lawyer, I don't intend to be the bad cop in the mix, but let's say very cautiously optimistic cop, both from the perspective of the development of the trends on the market and also from the legal perspective. So we might talk about it later, perhaps now or in the afternoon, but there are some roller coaster dynamics currently when it comes to regulation of AI in the EU and worldwide. For instance, as some of you may know, the attempt to postpone the AI Act doesn't look to be successful as of past few days. There are individual EU member states who are coming with their own national regulation dealing with some specific aspects of generative AI, such as Denmark, who has done the pipeline proposal for personality rights protection against deepfakes, curiously enough based on copyright law. And there are also some very turbulent times for AI, very surprisingly, in the United States. And there was some backlash against the addition of AI estoppel for 10 years into the notorious Big Beautiful Bill. So what I feel is that while adopting AI into the film industry, it's also important to sort of do the homework and try to stay up with the news and what's happening.
Mm-hmm. And there are many companies now in North America and global companies that are kind of working with the unions and SAG to create those kind of goalposts early on. I think of Flawless AI as being one of those companies. They're a dubbing company, and for them it's very important that they set the goalposts really early with this tech. What would you say to people here in this region in terms of what can be done to make sure those guardrails are set up now before it's too late? Rather, we spend a lot of time in this business talking about things before actioning things, it seems. What are some practical steps that you believe need to be done now to protect this business?
My answer might come across a bit naive coming from a lawyer, but I think it's very simple. It's discussion. There are a lot of groups and a lot of initiatives around use of generative AI in creative industries, but I think there must be a way how to sit to one table and discuss different priorities that different people in the creative ecosystem in the audiovisual sector have, because that's what makes it even more complicated. You have actors, you have producers, you have screenwriters, you have designers, and some might feel threatened by AI and some are ready to embrace it. And I think it's all about discussion and education to see the limits of the technology, but also the potential, and take into account the trends on the market, because it's not just competing against AI features, but unfortunately it's also competing against TikTok. We live in the attention economy, and while most of the content used with assistance of generative AI by general public might be, let's say, of a poorer artistic quality, there are so many ways how you can use AI to benefit to the process of from the pre-production to even distribution. But it must be done cautiously and taking into account, as I see it, all the people who are involved with the process and personal preferences of the viewers as well. We saw some nasty backlash, which might go as we start using more generative AI. But there were a few examples in the past where audience wasn't entirely happy about non-transparent use of generative AI. We also will have European regulation with some carve-outs for creative use of deepfakes. But lawyers are all about definitions and the fine print. But I think film industry should find some, let's say, game rules that are not necessarily at the moment based on laws, but some framework that will allow everybody to work with AI if they wish to, while keeping the industry competitive and, let's say, having some, sharing some values that it shared until now.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also important to sort of note that, you know, it seems like AI has been something that's just kind of burst onto the scene in the last sort of 12 to 18 months. But it's been being used in this business for much longer than that, certainly on the kind of post-production VFX side, in terms of kind of tools that they use. And I remember many years ago having discussions with people at post-production houses about it and saying to them, do you think that, is this a threat to you in your job? Because one might think on the surface that this is the part of the sector that will be affected the first and the most. And even 5 years ago, they were not very nonplussed. It felt like they had integrated into their systems and it was making their job easier. That said, Sten had just done a great presentation and we've lost him now, but in terms of, are people right to be fearful of job loss at the moment? Or will the kind of job creation that naturally comes along with this tech kind of kind of net that out or mean that there are more jobs available? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, this is a tricky one. I remember a documentary about ILM's history, and I remember all the wise men, the Nestors, who were building ILM and how they were commenting how their work was and profession was involved by CGI. My belief is that we are currently in a very similar situation, but it won't be, from my personal perspective, just about embracing unanimously the generative AI technology. Some people will use non-gen AI for, let's say, as you said, saving time and money. But I believe that there will be still place for creativity with or without use of generative AI. Mm-hmm. The fact that you should educate about the tools, experiment with them and know how they work and which clients want to work with them, which clients not, doesn't mean that you necessarily need to use them in the future. There might be a niche market for without AI movies, obviously. I don't think it will take over the industry as a whole. And transparency will be key also for viewers. I think as a film connoisseur, you should have a choice. Some people, it might be compared, I don't know, to some rare wine. Somebody will really want to watch the authentic human craft, although perhaps to some it will look outdated. Mm-hmm. And there will be a lot of hybrid works, I think, where you can use AI, generative AI for specific scenes or fine-tuning. And it will be up to industry and festivals and also awards and critiques, how will we see this. But in the end of the day, it might come to the individual impact and creative and artistic value of the movie, of the work, no matter whether AI was used or not.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Hi, Sten, can you hear me there?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I don't know if you heard that last question.
I did hear.
You did. I'm curious. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Do people have a right to be fearful of job loss, or will there be more opportunities and more job openings as a result of this technologically if we embrace it sensibly?
Yeah. So I think what Veronika said really rightfully, that we are in the kind of a Phil Tippett Jurassic Park moment, and remember when Phil Tippett was so afraid when he was kind of dropped out of animating the dinosaurs and that ILM came about, and in reality what of course happened was that they connected the computer with Phil's animation rig, and that was what the magic happened. So as I wanted to say before is that we are in a moment where it's not one or another, but it's a combined and then enhanced workflow. And I will just give you one example. Well, it turns out to be that the best AI artists for film industry are who? Not the VFX professionals, not the prompters, not the coders, but film editors. And the reason for that is that the film editors not only understand the visual texture, but they also understand the narrative role, as well as the language, the pacing, and what a shot as or a scene as a whole would look like. And I think this is a really interesting realization, because we have been so obsessed with, I would say, the image quality or the image capacity, and we're kind of tending to forget the whole narrative underlying logic of filmmaking. The other point, which was really fantastic, and at the National Film School in Denmark, where I worked with some of the biggest Scandinavian studios, I can't tell the details, but it is from a premier Scandinavian TV series that is going to be launched publicly next year. And they had a case where they had a particular scene, an action scene, and the edit just didn't work in the room. And so the editor and the VFX supervisor were sitting there, and it just doesn't deliver. So what they went on a little kind of an attempt, took some original footage, what they had shot, put it into Runway, and the VFX supervisor came back with 24 edit shots in less than a day. And they managed to then improve the edit. It's a very classical, historical, period piece, Scandinavian TV series, but that went to solve the problem. And I think this is really where the optimization and the opportunity comes from. Let's, of course, forget about all of these fully generated films. This is not the point. I think the point for us is really to go embrace these tools and see how we can make our craft, our storytelling, and everything else better in an environment, as we know, is that there's too much content, the sales are hard, the festivals are tough, and everyone needs to go the last mile in order to make better films. And this is what I really encourage everyone to go try and figure it out.
Fascinating. I could talk to you both for ages on this subject, but I won't because we've run out of time. But there is an extended conversation about this later today with you two, so I encourage everyone to attend that. Thank you both. Thank you for being here, and also thank you to Czech Creative Europe.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Wow.